Welcome to Credit and Coffee. Today, I'm sharing the story of how the relentless burden of student loan debt slowly eroded a life I thought was stable, forcing a painful midlife recalculation. The quiet hum of the fluorescent lights in my small apartment office often felt like the persistent buzz of an unanswered question, a question about how I had arrived here, amidst cardboard boxes and the faint smell of stale coffee, far from the polished ambition of my youth. The journey had begun with such bright, almost naive, aspirations, a young man armed with an impressive degree from a prestigious university, a degree that, ironically, felt like a gilded cage built with the bricks of student loan debt, a financial burden that had followed me like a shadow for over 2 decades. I remembered the initial excitement, the crisp scent of new textbooks, their pages still stiff and uncreased, the almost spiritual reverence I felt for the knowledge contained within their weighty covers, the way the rough, matte paper felt beneath my fingertips as I carefully turned each page, the specific, comforting scent of fresh ink and paper, the smooth, cool feel of the university library's polished oak tables beneath my fingertips. A hushed sanctuary where the soft rustle of turning pages and the occasional quiet cough were the only sounds, a place where I felt profoundly connected to generations of scholars, the late-night study sessions fueled by cheap instant coffee, its bitter warmth a necessary comfort in the cold pre-dawn hours, the mug warm against my palms, my mind buzzing with new ideas, new connections forming, the sheer thrill of learning, the boundless energy of youth, all underpinned by the fervent belief that this investment, this substantial credit taken out in my name, was a direct, undeniable path to a future of boundless prosperity and the kind of rock-solid stability my parents, through no fault of their own, had never quite achieved in their working-class lives, their subtle anxieties clinging to their worn-out clothes and tired smiles, the way my mother would carefully scrutinize every receipt, the quiet sigh she would make when the mail brought another unexpected bill, the way my father's hands, calloused and strong from years of manual labor, would sometimes tremble just slightly when he talked about the future, about retirement, about the ever-present threat of a single illness wiping out years of careful saving, and I was determined to build a world for myself, and for my future family, where such mundane worries were relegated to the distant past, an inheritance of peace and security, a shield against the unpredictable harshness of life. My wife, then my girlfriend, had shared that intoxicating optimism, her hand a warm, reassuring presence in mine as we walked across campus, the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot in autumn, the vibrant hues of crimson and gold painting the sidewalks, the fresh scent of spring blossoms in the air, a delicate perfume carried on a gentle breeze, dreaming aloud of a life together, a cozy home with a vibrant garden overflowing with roses and herbs. Perhaps a child or two whose laughter would fill the sun-drenched rooms, their tiny handprints on the sun-warmed windows, and a comfortable, secure existence free from the gnawing anxieties that had plagued our own childhoods, those quiet fears of bills piling up, of unexpected expenses that felt like insurmountable mountains, casting long, dark shadows over our youthful exuberance. We often talked about our future income, making rough budgets on flimsy napkins in dimly lit cafes, the clatter of ceramic cups and the murmur of other conversations fading into the background as we sketched out grand plans, imagining how easily we would pay off those initial student loans once my high-flying career took off, how we'd steadily build our investments, perhaps even dabble in the exciting world of the stock market, confident in the upward trajectory of our combined potential. The universe seemingly bending to our will, illuminated by our youthful certainty, a certainty that felt as solid and bright as the morning sun. The reality, as it often does, diverged sharply, almost cruelly, from the imagined path, a slow, insidious creep of financial pressure that began almost immediately after graduation, a subtle chill seeping into the warmth of our shared dreams, a cold current beneath the surface of our assumed prosperity. My first few jobs were respectable enough, positions that carried a certain prestige on paper, in a gleaming high-rise building with a panoramic view of the city, the air conditioning always humming, the scent of expensive cleaning products perpetually lingering, but the salaries, while seemingly decent when framed against entry-level expectations, always felt just a whisper, an agonizing breath, short of what was truly needed to tackle the principal on those formidable student loans, which seemed to grow rather than shrink, a hydra-headed monster whose interest compounded relentlessly, an unseen, living, breathing entity sucking away a significant portion of my monthly earnings, leaving me with a perpetual feeling of running in place, always breathless, never quite catching up, a frustrating, unending treadmill of payments. I remembered opening those stark white envelopes from the loan servicer, the bold black numbers seeming to mock my efforts, each statement a fresh wound, a reminder of the chasm between my reality and my aspirations. We married fueled by a love that felt powerful enough to conquer any obstacle, and a shared, unwavering belief that together, we would navigate any storm. Our wedding was a modest affair, held in a small, sunlit hall, the scent of wildflowers from the simple bouquets filling the air, every detail carefully budgeted, meticulously chosen to avoid adding even a single dollar of new debt to the already burgeoning stack of financial obligations that weighed on my mind like an invisible ballast, a heavy, unseen weight pulling me down. But even amidst the joy and the soft glow of candlelight, the muted strains of a string quartet playing a familiar melody, I felt a faint chill, a quiet anxiety that whispered just beneath the surface of my happiness as I thought of the long-term commitment that included not just my beautiful wife, her hand warm and soft in mine, but also the relentless monthly statement from the loan servicer, a constant, tangible reminder of the gilded cage I had willingly stepped into, a cage I feared might someday trap us both. We bought a modest house, a charming but compact little place with peeling paint on the windowsills and a small, neglected patch of lawn in the back, the grass a sparse, patchy green, stretching our combined income to meet the relentless rhythm of the mortgage payments, believing deeply in the enduring dream of homeownership, the tangible evidence of stability, a solid foundation for our future, a place to plant roots. But we soon discovered the insidious, suffocating trap of being house poor, where every unexpected repair, a sudden, gurgling leak under the sink that ruined the cabinet floor with a spreading dark stain, the ominous rumble of an aging furnace giving up the ghost in the dead of winter, its cold silence a chilling harbinger, the persistent drip of a leaky roof creating a small, dark puddle on the floorboards, every rising utility bill that seemed to swell with an alarming unpredictability. The electricity bill inexplicably higher each month despite our careful conservation, every incremental increase in property taxes, felt like a sharp, disorienting punch to the gut, leaving us reeling and scrambling for breath, our carefully constructed budget crumbling before our eyes. The walls of our small living room, once a blank canvas for future memories, a space where we imagined evenings filled with laughter and shared stories, the scent of home-cooked meals lingering in the air, began to feel less like a sanctuary and more like they were closing in, decorated not with artwork but with the invisible, oppressive weight of financial obligations, a suffocating presence that pressed down on us. My wife, a kind and inherently supportive soul, often worked extra shifts at her demanding job, her weariness a silent accusation I carried deep within me, a heavy unspoken burden even though she never voiced it, the dark circles under her eyes, the slight slump of her shoulders speaking volumes, a shared, pervasive pressure we both felt but spoke less and less about, each passing day adding another layer to the unspoken tension, replacing easy conversation with strained silence. The clinking of our forks against plates at dinner becoming painfully loud, the quiet ticking of the kitchen clock marking the unspoken distance between us. The early years of our marriage were punctuated by these quiet anxieties, the unspoken questions hanging in the air during our evening meals, the clinking of cutlery on plates amplified by the silence, the strained smiles we offered when friends spoke brightly of lavish vacations to exotic locales, their social media feeds filled with sun-drenched beaches and glittering cityscapes, glittering new cars with that unmistakable new car smell, a tantalizing scent of fresh leather and plastic. Or ambitious renovation projects that seemed to materialize effortlessly, their homes transformed with new kitchens and sparkling bathrooms. We tried desperately to keep up, to maintain the carefully constructed facade of success, of financial ease, but it was utterly exhausting, a constant, draining performance where the most critical, most unforgiving audience was ourselves, scrutinizing every purchase, every decision, every missed opportunity, every small indulgence feeling like a betrayal of our precarious financial situation. I took on a new role at a major tech company, a gleaming glass and steel tower in the bustling downtown core, a position that promised not only good pay but also a clear upward path to advancement, a beacon of hope in the deepening financial gloom, a chance to finally outrun the shadow of student loans, but it quickly morphed into a soul-crushing grind, the moral compromises inherent in its aggressive business practices gnawing relentlessly at my conscience, turning each day into a slow, agonizing erosion of my spirit, each task feeling heavier than the last, like chipping away at a mountain of stone with a dull chisel. I remembered the cold conference rooms, the low hum of the projector, the jargon-filled presentations advocating for strategies that felt fundamentally exploitative, the way my stomach would clench each time I had to justify decisions I internally abhorred, the feeling of my own integrity slowly dissolving, like sugar in hot water, replaced by a bitter, hollow ache. The long hours, the late-night calls that blurred the line between work and home, the glow of my phone screen a constant intruder in our quiet evenings, the constant, unrelenting pressure to hit ever-increasing targets, to push products I didn't believe in, all felt like necessary evils, a series of painful sacrifices to keep the wolves of debt from our door, to protect the fragile, increasingly brittle peace of our domestic life, a peace that was becoming harder and harder to maintain. I saw my colleagues, many of them younger, seemingly unburdened by the crushing legacy debt I carried like a lead weight, casually investing in cryptocurrencies, talking excitedly about Bitcoin, about Ethereum, about other digital assets, seemingly making fortunes overnight with a casual disregard that both fascinated and infuriated me, their youthful confidence a sharp contrast to my own quiet desperation, and a dangerous flicker of desperation ignited within me, a fervent yearning for a quicker, more direct path out of the deep, dark hole I felt perpetually stuck in, a way to bypass the slow, agonizing climb. I started doing some research, late at night after my wife was finally asleep, the soft glow of my laptop screen illuminating the dark room, the click of the mouse a tiny conspiratorial sound in the quiet house, poring over complex charts and cryptic forums, devouring articles and white papers, the abstract, technical language promising untold wealth, convincing myself with a dangerous certainty that smart investments, a calculated, well-timed risk, could be the definitive answer. The magical key to unlocking our financial freedom, a way to reclaim the dreams we had sketched on those flimsy napkins. I kept this venture a secret, a small, furtive endeavor, the weight of the secret pressing on my chest, starting with a modest sum, then slowly, almost imperceptibly, drawing more from our carefully hoarded savings, the numbers on the bank statement blurring as I rationalized each transfer, telling myself with fervent conviction that I would replace it quickly with significant gains, that this was not a gamble, but a strategic move, our ingenious way out. Our secret weapon against the relentless tide of debt. The early days were exhilarating, a visceral rush of seeing numbers climb with astonishing speed, the green digits on the screen a hypnotic dance, a fleeting, intoxicating sense of mastery, of finally taking control of my destiny, of beating the system, of outsmarting the very forces that had held me captive for so long. I began to dream again, to imagine clearing those monstrous student loans, surprising my wife with a debt-free future, a clean slate, a genuine fresh start, picturing her relieved smile, the lightness in her eyes, the joy of finally breathing freely. But the market, as I was soon to discover, is a cruel, indifferent mistress, unpredictable and utterly uncaring of human hope, of desperate dreams, a swirling vortex of algorithms and emotion that obeys no master. A sudden, sharp downturn, a seismic collapse in the value of the digital assets I had so carefully chosen, a cascading plummet that felt like a punch to the gut, wiped out not just my speculative gains, the ephemeral profits I had imagined, but a significant, heartbreaking portion of our emergency fund, money we had painstakingly saved, penny by penny, for years, for a rainy day that was now upon us, a torrential downpour. Washing away not just the money, but the fragile sense of security it represented. The betrayal I felt wasn't from the market itself, a faceless, indifferent entity, but from myself, a crushing, suffocating realization of my own folly, my hubris, a deep, burning shame that tightened its icy grip around my throat, making it almost impossible to breathe, to think, a searing heat rising in my chest, a desperate urge to reverse time, to undo the irreversible. I had gambled not just with money, but with the fundamental bedrock of our relationship, trust. The confession was agonizing, a quiet evening after a particularly bland, tasteless meal, the clinking of forks against plates the only sound for a long, torturous moment before I finally spoke, the words feeling heavy and leaden, tasting of ash, as they painstakingly left my trembling lips, each syllable a confession of a deeper betrayal. My wife's face, usually so open and kind, so full of warmth, closed off immediately, a mask of profound hurt and disbelief settling over her features, her eyes, usually so expressive, turning cold and distant, like dark, impenetrable pools, reflecting back my own shame. The silence that followed was deafening, a palpable, suffocating chasm opening between us, wider than any financial deficit could ever hope to measure, deeper than any debt, an emptiness that echoed the one now growing within me. It was the moment I realized with gut-wrenching clarity that the marital strain caused by one partner's secret debt and reckless, risky investments wasn't just about the money, the tangible loss of our savings. It was about the fundamental, irreparable erosion of the bedrock of our relationship, honesty, transparency, and shared vulnerability. The collapse of our shared financial security mirrored, with an unsettling precision, the collapse of something far deeper, far more precious within us, the very foundation of our bond, splintering into countless irreparable pieces. That period was a blur of quiet arguments, whispered recriminations, each word feeling like a tiny shard of glass, slicing deeper with every exchange, and the chilling, pervasive silence that followed, each moment a tiny fissure spreading relentlessly through the foundation of our life together, splintering it irrevocably, cracking the plaster on the walls, metaphorically and perhaps literally, as the house itself seemed to sag under the weight of our discord. The student loans, once a shared, if unspoken, burden we had both tacitly agreed to carry, now became a stark, painful symbol of everything that was wrong, everything that had gone awry between us. The endless, soul-numbing payments a constant, monthly reminder of my initial debt and my later catastrophic choices, a relentless drumming that echoed the discord in our home, each outgoing transfer a fresh stab of guilt. Inflation was soaring, an invisible hand reaching into our pockets, making every purchase feel like a struggle. Utility bills climbed higher with each passing month, the cost of heating and electricity becoming astronomical, forcing us to bundle in blankets even indoors, to turn off lights in empty rooms, and the ever-increasing cost of living squeezed us from every conceivable direction, turning simple trips to the supermarket into agonizing exercises in grim calculation. Comparing prices of basic necessities, the bright fluorescent lights of the aisles illuminating my anxious brow, putting back items we once considered staples, like a favorite brand of coffee or a slightly more expensive cut of meat, the humiliation a bitter taste on my tongue, a constant reminder of our dwindling resources and growing despair. My parents, aging and increasingly in declining health, also began to require more of my time and limited resources, their needs becoming more pressing, their voices on the phone sounding frail and distant, their requests for help with medical appointments or household repairs adding another heavy layer to the already immense pressure, placing me squarely, uncomfortably, in the sandwich generation, stretched thin, frayed at the edges. Between the urgent needs of my elders and the crumbling edifice of my own household, feeling like I was failing everyone. Professional jealousy, a subtle but deeply toxic presence, also began to poison my friendships, as I watched former colleagues and old friends seemingly sail effortlessly through their lives, unburdened by financial worries, making larger investments, upgrading homes to grander, more spacious properties with manicured lawns, planning elaborate international trips to breathtaking destinations, their tanned faces glowing with easy contentment, while I felt trapped, perpetually playing catch-up. Always struggling to stay afloat, the constant financial comparison a bitter, indigestible pill to swallow, fueling a quiet resentment that festered deep within me, making me withdraw even further. The layoff came suddenly, without warning, a curt, impersonal email arriving on a Tuesday morning, its subject line generic and ominous, reading organizational restructuring, followed by a sterile meeting with an HR representative who spoke in hushed, corporate tones about restructuring initiatives and unpredictable market shifts, her words echoing in the cold, windowless conference room, the stale air thick with unspoken dismissal, devoid of any genuine empathy, her gaze never quite meeting mine. My long-term tech job, the one I had endured for years, sacrificing my conscience and my well-being, was gone, evaporated in an instant, leaving behind a profound void. It felt less like a professional termination and more like a brutal eviction from a life I had meticulously built, however imperfectly, however riddled with compromise, leaving me adrift without a compass. The quiet anxiety of being unemployed, even with a modest severance package that felt like a meager consolation prize, a token gesture in the face of my shattered future, was a crushing, debilitating weight, the ticking clock of expenses relentlessly counting down our dwindling resources, a constant, unbearable pressure, like being held underwater, gasping for air. That same week, as if the universe had a cruel sense of irony, a series of unexpected medical bills arrived for my wife's minor but persistent health issue, a chronic back problem that flared up unexpectedly, radiating a dull, persistent ache that sometimes crippled her, requiring specialist visits, expensive scans, the cold, clinical whir of the MRI machine, and physical therapy sessions not fully covered by insurance, a truly cruel twist of fate. The crushing weight of medical debt adding yet another impossible layer to our already precarious financial situation, pushing us further into the abyss, leaving us feeling utterly helpless. It felt as if the universe itself was actively conspiring against us, pushing us relentlessly to the very edge of our endurance, testing our limits beyond what we thought possible, chipping away at our very souls. My wife and I tried, we truly did, with all the remaining strength and hope we could muster, to piece things back together, to mend the gaping wounds that had formed between us, the tender, scarred places in our shared history. But the trust was too deeply broken, the financial crisis too overwhelming, a tsunami that had swept away everything we had built, the emotional toll too great, too pervasive to overcome, leaving us both utterly depleted. The quiet dignity of our separation was perhaps the kindest part, a mutual sorrowful acknowledgement that we had both fought bravely, perhaps even valiantly, but had ultimately lost the protracted war against the relentless pressures, both external and internal, that had built up around us slowly, inexorably, suffocating our love, leaving only ashes. Divorce, when it finally arrived, was less a dramatic explosion of anger and recrimination, and more a slow, mournful surrender, a quiet, almost imperceptible fading. The ink on the official papers a stark, cold testament to the years of quiet struggle, the silent sacrifices, the profound sadness of the unpaid chapters of a life we had once envisioned so vividly, so optimistically together. I remember sitting alone in the emptied house, the last of the furniture gone, the walls echoing with an unnatural stillness, the faint, ghost-like scent of her perfume still lingering in the air, a painful, lingering phantom limb of our shared past, a memory that would sometimes ache with unexpected intensity, the rooms feeling hollow and vast, cavernous, the echo of my own breathing the only sound in the oppressive silence, a silence that felt heavier than any noise. The sheer, overwhelming weight of it all, the original student loans that had started this relentless cascade of financial woes, the catastrophic failed investments, the soul-crushing job loss, the agonizing divorce, pushed me inexorably to the very brink of bankruptcy, a terrifying, humiliating prospect that loomed large and menacingly over my uncertain future, threatening to erase any semblance of a clean slate, to brand me with a permanent mark of failure. I spent weeks, perhaps even months, in a debilitating fog, simply existing, merely breathing, the days blurring into one another, indistinguishable, the quiet chill of the early mornings seeping deep into my bones, mirroring the emptiness within me, a pervasive cold that settled deep in my chest, a profound sense of disorientation. I would wake to the gray light filtering through the blinds, unable to distinguish Tuesday from Friday, the concept of time itself having lost its meaning, each hour a monotonous repetition of the one before. The taste of dust seemed to cling to everything, to my tongue, to the air, a metaphor for the barrenness of my existence. I would stare at the peeling paint on the kitchen walls, untouched since my wife and I had first moved in, a silent testament to deferred maintenance and forgotten dreams, feeling an almost physical ache of regret. I often found myself just sitting, unmoving, for hours on the floor in the empty living room, the cold wood pressing into my skin, watching dust motes dance in the infrequent shafts of sunlight, my mind a blank, numb canvas, too exhausted to even properly grieve. My once sharp intellect felt dulled, heavy, as if submerged in thick mud. The desire to actively seek new employment or to even engage with the outside world felt like scaling a sheer cliff face without gear, an impossible, strength-sapping task. I lived on instant noodles and stale bread, the simple act of preparing a meal feeling like an insurmountable hurdle. The phone would ring, its insistent buzz a jarring intrusion, but I rarely answered, shrinking from the possibility of another reminder of my failures, another voice seeking something I couldn't provide. I watched the seasons change through the window, the vibrant green of summer slowly fading to the fiery reds and oranges of autumn, then to the stark, skeletal branches of winter, feeling utterly disconnected from the rhythm of life outside, a ghost in my own existence. Then one crisp autumn afternoon, as I sat on a rough, cold park bench, the sharp scent of decaying leaves filling the air, the earthy aroma of damp soil rising from the ground, watching crimson and gold leaves drift silently, gracefully to the ground, each one a tiny, fragile farewell, a thought, clear and sharp as a shard of ice, cut through the hazy despair. I couldn't keep doing this, couldn't keep chasing a version of success that was slowly, systematically destroying me from the inside out, that had already cost me everything I truly valued. I needed a complete, radical midlife reset, a total recalibration of my existence, a fundamental shift in my understanding of what enough truly meant. The instability and terrifying uncertainty of a midlife career change felt daunting, almost impossible, a mountain too high to climb, the thought of starting from scratch in my 40s feeling like a cruel joke, but the alternative, a slow, agonizing descent into bitterness, regret, and resentment, a life perpetually shackled by past mistakes and unfulfilled expectations, felt even more terrifying, an unbearable fate, a living death. I began to actively look for something entirely different, something that aligned not with the external markers of success I had once pursued, the impressive titles and high salaries, but with the quiet, fundamental values I was now desperately trying to excavate from beneath the heavy rubble of my past, something authentic to my reawakening self, a genuine purpose that resonated deep within my soul. I stopped chasing the high-paying, soul-crushing corporate jobs that had once consumed my ambition, the ones that had demanded my integrity as payment. Instead, I started volunteering at a local community garden, feeling the cool, rich earth beneath my fingertips, the coarse texture of the soil, the simple, grounding act of planting seeds and watching things grow, slowly, patiently, the miracle of life unfolding with deliberate grace, a profound balm to my frayed nerves, a quiet healing for my weary spirit, a reconnecting with something fundamental and real. The scent of freshly turned soil, the vibrant green of new shoots, the buzzing of bees around the blossoming flowers, all served to slowly, gently, reawaken a sense of connection to the natural world and to my own inner self. I took on odd jobs, smaller, less glamorous, certainly not offering the prestige or income of my former career, but they offered a tangible sense of purpose, a direct, honest connection to the work itself, whether it was delivering groceries, navigating the familiar streets of the city in my old car, helping an elderly neighbor with repairs, fixing a leaky faucet, the satisfaction of a job well done, or assisting at a local library, shelving books, the quiet rustle of pages. The scent of old paper and dust, all without the draining corporate politics or the insidious moral compromises that had eroded my spirit. Each small task, each honest interaction, chipped away at the layers of cynicism and despair that had encrusted my heart, revealing a core of simple contentment. I sold the house, the one that had held so many anxieties, so many unspoken burdens, the weight of a dream that had become a nightmare, and moved into a smaller, simpler apartment in a different part of the city, one with fewer rooms but a sunnier disposition, shedding the vast majority of the material possessions that had come to symbolize the external pressures I had internalized, the expectations that had crushed me, choosing instead a minimalist existence. The act of decluttering felt like a physical and emotional liberation. Each box taken to donation, each item discarded, felt like shedding a layer of oppressive skin. The silence in this new, smaller space felt different. It was no longer heavy with unspoken burdens or the ghosts of past arguments, but quiet with the promise of a genuine fresh start, a peaceful blank canvas, an invitation for new beginnings. I worked diligently with a trusted financial advisor, a patient, empathetic woman with a calm voice and steady gaze, who helped me methodically tackle the remaining student loan debt, no longer viewing it as an insurmountable, terrifying monster, but as a series of manageable, quantifiable steps, each payment a small victory, slowly chipping away at the principal, breaking it down into achievable milestones. She helped me understand the importance of creating a sustainable budget, of living within my means, of building a genuine safety net, not just a fragile illusion. I learned about true risk management, not just in the abstract world of finance, playing with stocks or speculating on cryptocurrencies, but in the everyday choices of life, understanding with a newfound clarity that true security came not from endless accumulation or reckless speculation, but from thoughtful, informed choices and a deep, cultivated resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, to adapt to unforeseen circumstances, to trust my own judgment again. I began to find profound, quiet joys in everyday scenes, in simple moments. The warmth of a sturdy ceramic mug of herbal tea in my hands on a chilly, gray morning, the soothing aroma of mint and ginger rising with the steam, the rhythmic, soothing sound of rain against my window pane as I read, the world outside a soft blur of gray and green, the way the late afternoon light fell, golden and soft, across the worn, familiar pages of a beloved book, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, the comforting scent of freshly baked bread from the small bakery downstairs. A simple pleasure that filled my apartment with a sense of cozy well-being. My relationship with my wife, though irrevocably changed by the crucible of our shared past, softened over time, transforming into a quiet, respectful friendship. We sometimes met for coffee at a small, unassuming cafe, the clatter of porcelain and the gentle murmur of other patrons a comforting background, sharing updates about our separate lives, a gentle, bittersweet nostalgia coloring our conversations, free from the crushing financial shadows that had once consumed us, allowing us to see each other with clearer eyes, with kindness, with an understanding born of shared pain and eventual healing, acknowledging the good that had once been. Without the pressure of what it had become, I learned to truly appreciate what I had, the simple, profound abundance of my present, rather than constantly striving with a desperate hunger for what I lacked, for what others possessed. The professional jealousy that had once poisoned my thoughts and made my achievements feel hollow dissipated like morning mist as I focused inward on my own authentic growth, my own deeply personal definition of success, unburdened by external comparison, finding my own rhythm, my own true north. I started a small, local business, something entirely new, rooted in my rediscovered passion for community building and sustainable living, a tangible expression of my new values, perhaps a small shop selling locally sourced goods or offering workshops on sustainable practices, a place where genuine connections could form. It wasn't a startup that promised exponential wealth or the intoxicating, fleeting allure of cryptocurrencies, but it was honest work, fulfilling and meaningful, and it brought a deep, abiding sense of satisfaction that money had never been able to buy, a quiet pride in contributing something positive, something real to the world. My income was modest, certainly less than my tech days, but it was enough, and I found a quiet, profound peace in knowing that every dollar earned was free from the crushing weight of old debts and the phantom pains of past failures, a clean, unburdened earning, a genuine reflection of my efforts and values. I found freedom not in escaping my past, not in pretending it never happened, but in understanding it, in accepting the choices I had made and diligently, painfully learning from them, integrating those lessons into the fabric of my new existence, wearing the scars of experience not with shame, but with hard-won wisdom. The unpaid chapters of my life were now slowly, deliberately being written with a new hand, a hand that understood the invaluable worth of contentment, the quiet dignity of starting over from scratch, and the profound, hard-won liberation that comes from finally being truly at peace with what is, rather than perpetually yearning with a desperate ache for what once was or what might have been, for a future that existed only in the realm of youthful fantasy. The lingering chill of past anxieties sometimes returns, a faint echo, a brief tightening in my chest, a fleeting ghost of my former self, but I meet it now with a quiet strength, a gentle understanding that even in profound loss, there is always, always the possibility of growth, of finding a new, more authentic, more fulfilling path forward, a path paved not with gold, but with resilience and self-acceptance. The world outside still whirled with its relentless pursuit of more, its soaring inflation, its complicated financial landscapes, its endless demands, but within my small, reconfigured life, a different kind of wealth had taken root and blossomed. The wealth of simplicity, of resilience, of genuine connection, and a profound, deeply felt, hard-won peace that no market crash or student loan statement could ever diminish. Reflecting on your own journey, what's a major turning point or financial lesson you've learned that completely reshaped your perspective and led you to a different path? Share your story in the comments below, and if this narrative resonated with you, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more stories from Credit and Coffee. And just for fun, what's one small, unexpected joy you experienced this week that brightened your day, no matter how tiny it seemed?